It was a confession. The man sitting on the tailgate of the rusted red pickup truck didn't know he had an audience. He didn't know that his voice, rough like whiskey and deep like the night, was about to change the destiny of the woman watching him from the tree line. To her, he was just a handsome cowboy in worn-out boots, strumming a guitar worth more than his truck. She didn't know that the dirt on his jeans hid a billionaire's legacy. She didn't know that he owned the very ground she was standing on, or the town stretching out to the horizon. All she knew was that she had come here to write a hit song, but looking at him, she realized she was about to write a love story that would destroy them both. Sophia Vance gripped the steering wheel of her rented convertible until her knuckles turned white. The GPS on her phone had lost signal 10 miles back, somewhere between a cornfield and a herd of cattle. Recalculating, the robotic voice said for the 10th time before the screen went black. Dead battery. Sophia let out a scream of frustration that was swallowed by the vast, empty silence of the countryside. "Great," she muttered, pushing her designer sunglasses up into her blonde hair. "Just great. Lost in the middle of nowhere with no signal, no map, and a deadline that is going to kill me." She was running away, not from the law, but from something worse. Expectation. Sophia was the golden girl of pop music, or she had been. Her last album had flopped. The critics called her washed up at 25. Her label gave her an ultimatum: write a hit in 3 weeks, or her contract was void. So she did what any desperate artist would do. She rented a secluded farmhouse in Tennessee, sight unseen, promising rustic charm and isolation. She looked around. She definitely had the isolation. Steam began to rise from the hood of her car. With a groan, the engine sputtered and died. "Subscribe to the channel and tell me what city you're watching from." Sophia rested her forehead against the wheel. Silence. Absolute, heavy silence. Then she heard it. A guitar. It was faint, drifting from the top of the hill. It sounded intricate, professional, soulful. Grabbling her purse, she stepped out of the car. Her heels sank into the soft dirt. She kicked them off, grabbing her sneakers from the back seat. "Okay, Sophia," she whispered to herself. "Follow the music. Maybe the guitar player has a phone or gas or a map." She climbed the wooden fence, ignoring the "no trespassing" sign that was half covered by vines, and began to walk through the tall golden wheat. The sun was setting, casting a honey-colored glow over the world. It was beautiful, terrifyingly so. As she crested the hill, she saw him. He was sitting on the back of an old, beat-up red truck. He was wearing a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing tanned forearms corded with muscle. A cowboy hat was pulled low over his eyes, shading his face from the dying sun. He was playing a Martin D28 acoustic. Sophia knew guitars. She knew that specific guitar was vintage, rare, and incredibly expensive. It seemed out of place in the hands of a man whose truck looked like it had survived a war. She stopped, holding her breath, not wanting to interrupt the song. It was a ballad about losing everything to find yourself. His voice was a baritone rumble that vibrated in her chest, awakening parts of her she thought had gone dormant years ago. He sang with pain, real, raw pain. When the final chord faded into the wind, Sophia inadvertently stepped on a dry twig. Snap. The man's head snapped up. Sophia froze. He was intense. That was the only word for it. Dark stubble covered a square jaw. His eyes were the color of dark roasted coffee, and right now they were narrowed in suspicion. "You're trespassing," he said. His voice was even deeper when he spoke. Sophia raised her hands in a gesture of peace. "I'm sorry. My car, it died down on the main road. I heard the music." He didn't smile. He rested his hand on the body of the guitar. Protective. "The main road is 2 miles that way. This is private property." Sophia took a step closer, her curiosity overriding her fear. "I'm Sophia. I rented the farmhouse and the Miller place. The agency said it was down this road." The man's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of recognition or annoyance. "The Miller place," he repeated, standing up. He was tall, towering. He hopped off the tailgate, his boots thudding softly in the dirt. He walked toward her with a slow, predatory grace that made Sophia's heart hammer against her ribs. "I'm the caretaker," he lied smoothly. "Nash." Nash, she tested the name. It suited him, rugged, short. "Look, Nash, I'm really in a bind. My car is dead, my phone is dead, and I need to get to that farmhouse before it gets dark. Can you help me?" Nash looked her up and down. He took in the expensive clothes, the desperate look in her eyes, the way she clutched her purse like a lifeline. He hated city people. He hated the noise they brought. But he technically was the landlord, though she didn't need to know he owned the Miller place and the truck and the 10,000 acres surrounding them. "I can give you a ride," he said, gesturing to the truck, "but it'll cost you." Sophia blinked. Of course. He needed money. He was a farmhand, driving a rusted truck. "Oh, of course." She fumbled with her purse. She pulled out a $50 bill. "Is this enough? For the ride and maybe for the song?" It was beautiful. Nash looked at the $50. He suppressed a laugh. He had made $50 million in the stock market that morning before breakfast, but he reached out and took the bill, his rough fingers brushing against her soft skin. The contact sent a jolt of electricity straight up Sophia's arm. "Deal," he said, pocketing the money. "Hop in, but don't expect air conditioning. The windows are the AC." The inside of the truck smelled of old leather, pine, and him. It was an intoxicating scent, masculine and earthy. Sophia sat rigidly in the passenger seat as Nash navigated the truck down the bumpy dirt path. "So," Nash said, breaking the silence, "Sophia, you don't look like a farmer. What brings a city girl to the Miller place?" "I'm a musician," she said, pride creeping into her voice. "Or, I'm trying to be." Again, Nash's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "A musician? Like in Nashville? New York? Pop music? I needed somewhere quiet to write." "Quiet?" Nash scoffed. "The country isn't quiet, darling. It's just loud in a different way. Crickets, coyotes, memories." She looked at his profile. He was devastatingly handsome in the golden light. "You're a musician too," she said. "I heard you play. You're incredible. Have you ever tried to do it professionally?" Nash's jaw clenched. A shadow passed over his face. "No, just a hobby. Cows don't care if you hit a wrong note." He was lying. She could tell. Someone didn't play like that as a hobby. "Well," she said, leaning back, "if you ever want to make some real money, you should let me record you. I have contacts." "Real money," Nash repeated dryly. He pulled the truck up to a small, white wooden house with a wraparound porch. It looked charming but neglected. "Here we are, the Miller place." He killed the engine. The silence returned. "Thank you, Nash," she said, "for the ride." "Keys are under the mat," he said, not looking at her. "There's firewood around back. If the generator dies, kick it twice." "Wait," she said as he started the engine again. "Will I see you again, in case something breaks?" Nash looked at her through the open window. His dark eyes lingered on her lips for a second too long. "I live just over the ridge." He pointed to a massive structure in the distance, barely visible. "The big barn. If you need something, scream. Sound carries out here." With that, he tipped his hat, reversed the truck and drove away, leaving a cloud of dust in his wake. Sophia stood on the porch, watching him go. She felt a strange pull in her chest. She had come here to write songs about heartbreak, but looking at the dust settling on the road, she had a feeling she was about to live one. The farmhouse was exactly as described. Rustic, which was a polite way of saying old and drafty. Sophia spent the first hour cleaning dust off the surfaces and setting up her portable recording studio in the living room. She placed her keyboard by the window, her notebook open to a blank page. Title, Starting Over. She stared at the blank page. Nothing, no melody, no lyrics, just the buzzing of a fly against the window pane. "Focus, Sophia," she muttered. But her mind kept drifting back to the man in the truck, Nash. The way his hands moved over the guitar fretboard. The sadness in his eyes. Why was a man with that much talent hiding in the middle of nowhere? Night fell heavy and fast. The darkness in the country was absolute. No streetlights, no neon, just an endless canopy of stars. Sophia made herself a cup of tea and stepped out onto the porch. The air was cooling down. Then she heard it again. The music. It was coming from the direction Nash had pointed. The big barn. But this wasn't acoustic guitar. It was a piano. A grand piano by the sound of it. The melody was haunting, complex, echoing through the valley. Sophia set her cup down. She grabbed her shawl. She shouldn't go. He had made it clear he wanted to be left alone, but the music was like a siren's call. She walked down the porch steps, her bare feet navigating the cool grass. She followed the sound, crossing the field that separated the rental house from his property. As she got closer, she realized the barn wasn't just a barn. It was a massive converted structure with floor-to-ceiling glass windows on one side. She crept closer, hiding behind an old oak tree. Through the glass, she saw him, Nash. He wasn't wearing the flannel shirt anymore. He was wearing a simple white t-shirt that clung to his chest. He was sitting at a Steinway grand piano, a piano that cost more than a house. The room around him was filled with other instruments, guitars on the wall, gold records framed in the shadows. Sophia gasped, covering her mouth. Gold records? Who was this man? He played with his eyes closed, his head thrown back, lost in the music. It was a song of anger, of regret. He pounded the keys, pouring his soul into the instrument. Sophia watched, mesmerized. She pulled out her phone, which had regained a sliver of battery, and hit record on the voice memo app. She needed to capture this melody. It was pure genius. Suddenly, Nash stopped. His hands froze on the keys. He turned his head sharply toward the window, staring straight into the darkness where she was hiding. "Who's there?" he shouted. Sophia ducked behind the tree, her heart racing. The glass door slid open. "I know you're there," Nash's voice boomed. Sophia debated running, but she was caught. Slowly, she stepped out from behind the tree. I heard the music," she stammered. "I couldn't help it." Nash stormed out onto the grass. He looked furious. "Do you make a habit of spying on people, Sophia?" "I wasn't spying, I was listening. You have gold records on your wall, Nash. Who are you?" Nash stopped a few feet from her. His chest was heaving. He looked at her, realizing his mistake. He had left the curtains open. He took a deep breath, composing himself. The mask of the simple farmhand slipped back into place, but it was crooked now. "Souvenirs," he lied, "from a life I left behind. Go home, Sophia." "You're not just a caretaker," she challenged him, stepping closer. "You play like a virtuoso, you have a Steinway in a barn. Tell me the truth." Nash looked down at her. The moonlight caught the defiance in her blue eyes. She was trouble, beautiful, stubborn trouble. "The truth." He stepped into her personal space, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The truth is that curiosity killed the cat, darlin, and you are wandering into a wolf's den." "I'm not afraid of wolves," she whispered back, though her trembling hands betrayed her. "You should be," he murmured. For a moment, the air between them crackled. He looked at her mouth. She looked at his. It was the precipice of something dangerous. Then a loud thunderclap shook the ground. The sky opened up, and torrential rain began to pour instantly. "Go!" Nash shouted over the rain. "Run back to the house before the storm gets worse." "Tell me who you are," she yelled back, soaked in seconds. "I'm nobody," he roared. "Just a farmer. Now go!" He turned and went back inside, slamming the glass door and yanking the curtains shut. Sophia stood in the rain for a moment, staring at the closed curtains. She was shivering, cold, and wet, but she was also inspired. She turned and ran back to her farmhouse, the melody he had played etched into her mind. He was lying, and she was going to find out why. The storm raged all night, knocking out the power. Sophia slept fitfully, dreaming of dark eyes and piano melodies. When she woke up, the sun was shining, but the farmhouse was freezing. No electricity meant no heater, and no coffee. "Great," she groaned, wrapping herself in a blanket. "Day 2 of the retreat. Hypothermia." She needed wood for the fireplace. Nash had said it was around back. She dressed in jeans and a thick sweater and went outside. The air was crisp and clean, the storm having washed away the dust. She found the woodpile, but the logs were heavy oak. She struggled to lift one, getting splinters in her manicured fingers. "City hands," a voice mocked gently from behind her. Sophia spun around. Nash was leaning against the fence, chewing on a piece of straw. He looked fresh, rested, and annoyingly handsome. He was wearing a denim jacket over his flannel today, and that cowboy hat. "I'll have you know these hands have played Carnegie Hall," she retorted, dropping the log. "Playing piano is different than splitting wood," Nash smiled. It was the first time she had seen him genuinely smile. It transformed his face, softening the hard edges. He walked over, picked up the axe leaning against the shed, and split a log with one fluid, powerful swing. Sophia watched the muscles in his back flex. She swallowed dryly. "I brought you something," he said, nodding to a thermos sitting on the fence post. "Coffee from the big house. Since the power is out." "Thank you," she said, grabbing the thermos. It was hot, black, and strong. "So, The caretaker has access to the owner's good coffee? The owner is generous, Nash said, splitting another log. I bet he is. Sophia sipped the coffee. Nash, about last night. He stopped swinging. Let's not talk about last night. You have gold records. They're not mine, I told you. They belong to the owner. And the piano playing? I learned a few tricks. Keeps the boredom away. You're a terrible liar, she said softly. Nash turned to look at her. He rested the axe on the ground. And you're a persistent woman, why do you care? You're here to write your songs and leave. In 2 weeks you'll be back in New York drinking lattes and forgetting this place ever existed. I don't think I could forget this, she said, looking around the farm, but her eyes landed on him. Or you. Nash went still. He looked at her, searching for deceit. In his world, the world of billionaire investors and music sharks, everyone wanted something. But she just looked at him like he was a man. I have to go check the fences, he said abruptly, breaking the moment. Storm might have brought a tree down. You want to come? Or are you too busy freezing? Sophia looked at the cold, empty house. Then she looked at the warm sun and the intriguing man. I'll come, she said, but I'm driving. Nash laughed. Not in that convertible you aren't. We take the truck. The drive out to the pasture was bumpy, the old suspension of the red truck protesting every rock and dip in the dirt road. Sophia bounced in the passenger seat, gripping the dashboard handle with one hand and her coffee thermos with the other. The morning sun was climbing higher, burning off the mist that clung to the valley floor, revealing a landscape so green it looked painted. Nash drove with one hand on the wheel, his left arm resting casually on the open window frame. He seemed completely at ease, a part of the machinery itself. He glanced over at her, amused by her white-knuckled grip. Relax, darlin, he drawled, his voice vibrating over the rumble of the engine. We aren't going off a cliff. The cows prefer the flatlands. Sophia let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. I'm used to taxis and subways, Nash. The ground in New York doesn't usually try to throw you into the ceiling. You get used to the rhythm, he said, slowing down as they approached a cattle guard. It's like a song. You just have to find the beat and ride with it. Don't fight the truck. Let it move you. Sophia looked at him, struck by the casual poetry of his words. For a simple caretaker, he spoke like a philosopher. She relaxed her grip slightly, letting her body sway with the movement of the vehicle. He was right. Once she stopped fighting it, the ride became almost soothing, a rocking motion that felt surprisingly intimate inside the small cab. They drove for another 20 minutes, passing fields of grazing cattle that looked like specks of ink on a green canvas. The property was massive. It went on for miles. Does the owner have a name? Sophia asked, watching the fence line blur past. You keep calling him the owner or he. It's mysterious. Nash's eyes stayed on the road. His name is Calloway, but he doesn't like it used much. He values his privacy. Calloway, Sophia tested the name, sounds like a corporate conglomerate. Something like that, Nash muttered. Look, there's the break. He pointed ahead. A massive oak tree, victim of last night's storm, had fallen across the barbed wire fence, crushing the wooden posts and creating a gaping hole. A few curious cows were already sniffing around the opening, contemplating a breakout. Nash parked the truck and hopped out. He grabbed a pair of heavy leather gloves from the dashboard and tossed them into Sophia's lap. What are these for? She asked, staring at the worn leather. You wanted to come, Nash said, walking around to the back of the truck to grab a chainsaw. I assumed you wanted to help, unless you want to sit in the truck and check your Instagram. Oh, wait, no signal. Sophia narrowed her eyes. It was a challenge. He expected her to be the delicate city princess. She shoved her hands into the gloves, which were 3 sizes too big, and opened the door. I don't have Instagram, she lied, jumping down into the tall grass. And I'm not afraid of a little manual labor. Point me at the tree. Nash suppressed a smile. He watched her march toward the fallen oak, her expensive jeans already getting stained with mud at the cuffs. She looked ridiculous and magnificent at the same time. He fired up the chainsaw, the roar tearing through the quiet morning. For the next hour they worked. Nash cut the heavy branches, his muscles straining against the fabric of his shirt, sweat darkening the collar. Sophia dragged the branches to a pile, her breath coming in short gasps, her hair escaping her ponytail. She wasn't strong, but she was tenacious. She didn't complain once. When a branch scratched her cheek, she just wiped the blood away with the back of her glove and kept pulling. Nash turned off the chainsaw. The silence rushed back in, filled only by their heavy breathing and the low mooing of the cows. He walked over to a cooler in the truck bed and grabbed 2 bottles of water. "Here," he said, handing her one. Sophia uncapped it and drank half the bottle in one go. She wiped her mouth, leaving a smear of dirt on her chin. "You got a little—" Nash started. Reaching out, he used his thumb to wipe the dirt from her chin. His skin was rough, calloused, hot. Sophia froze, the water bottle halted halfway to her mouth. The contact was brief, innocent, but it felt like a brand. "You work hard for a city girl," he said softly, his dark eyes scanning her face. "I have to," she whispered. "In my world, if you stop working, you disappear." "In my world," Nash replied, his gaze dropping to her lips, "if you stop working, you starve. Maybe we aren't so different." The moment stretched, thick with unspoken attraction. Then a cow mooed loudly right next to them, breaking the spell. Sophia laughed, a bright, genuine sound that made Nash's chest ache. "Come on," he said, turning away to hide the effect she had on him. "Let's fix the wire." By the time they finished, the sun had begun its descent, turning the sky into a masterpiece of violet and gold, the famous Tennessee golden hour. They sat on the tailgate of the truck, exhausted but satisfied. The fence was repaired. The cows were contained. Sophia took off the oversized gloves and set them beside her. She looked out at the horizon, her legs swinging off the edge of the truck. "It's beautiful here," she admitted. "I can see why Calloway hides here." Nash grabbed his guitar from the case in the truck bed. It was a reflex. Whenever he felt too much, he played. He sat next to her, tuning the strings. "It has its moments," he said. He began to strum a melody. It was soft, romantic, a slow waltz that sounded like a heartbeat. Sophia closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. "Play that again," she murmured. "That chord progression, it's unusual." Nash played it again. He started to hum, a low, wordless tune that blended with the wind. Sophia opened her eyes. She looked at him. The way the golden light hit his face, highlighting the strong line of his nose, the shadow of his lashes on his cheekbones. He was the most beautiful man she had ever seen, and the most talented. "Stand up," she said suddenly. Nash stopped playing. "What?" "Stand up. I want to try something. I have a melody in my head that goes with that." Nash stood on the ground behind the tailgate, but Sophia stayed on the truck bed. She stood up on the metal surface, which put her significantly higher than him. She looked down at him, blocking the sun, her silhouette framed by the golden light. "No," she said. "Sit back down. On the edge." Nash sat. Sophia remained standing on the truck bed. She moved closer to him, stepping between his spread knees. It was a bold move, intimate. She was now towering over him, but also enveloped by him. "Play," she commanded softly. Nash looked up at her. Her jeans were tight, hugging her curves. She had found an old cowboy hat in the truck cab earlier and put it on to shield her eyes from the sun. She looked like a queen of the Wild West. He started to play, his hands trembling slightly. Sophia began to sing. Her voice was crystal clear, a perfect counterpoint to his rough, deep tone. "I ran from the lights to find the dark, but found a fire in a stranger's spark." She looked down at him as she sang, placing her hands on his shoulders for balance. Nash looked up, mesmerizing. The guitar lay across his lap, forming a barrier between them, but it felt flimsy. The lyrics were about them. She was improvising, pulling words from the air, from the heat of the moment. Nash stopped playing. The song hung unfinished in the air. "Why did you stop?" she whispered, her hands still resting on his broad shoulders. "Because," Nash rasped, his voice thick with desire. "I can't concentrate when you look at me like that." "Like what? Like you see me," he said. "Nobody sees me, Sophia. They see the land or the work or other things. You just see Nash. I see a man who is hiding," she said, leaning down. Her face was inches from his. He could smell the vanilla of her perfume mixed with the sweat of their labor. He dropped his head back, surrendering. Sophia leaned in further. Her lips hovered over his. It was the terrifying, exhilarating moment before the jump. The sexual tension was a physical weight, pressing them together. Nash's hands left the guitar. They moved to her waist, his thumbs digging into the denim loops of her jeans. He could pull her down. He could kiss her right now, and he knew she wouldn't stop him. He wanted to taste her. He wanted to forget the lie, forget the billions, forget the past. His breath ghosted over her lips. "Sophia," he groaned. But then The radio in the truck cab crackled to life. It was a high-frequency, long-range radio, the kind used for security details, not farmhands. Eagle 1, this is base. We have a situation at the North Gate. Paparazzi spotted. Do you copy, Mr. Calloway? The voice was loud, clear, and it said the name, Mr. Calloway. Sophia froze. She pulled back inches, her eyes wide with confusion. Mr. Calloway, she whispered. Why is the radio calling for Calloway? And why is it in your truck? Nash cursed internally. He released her waist instantly, the spell shattering into a million pieces. He reached into the cab and snapped the radio off. It's the old frequency, he lied quickly, standing up and forcing her to step back. I use the boss's old truck sometimes. They must have forgotten I was in it. Sophia looked at him. The doubt was creeping in. The expensive guitar, the gold records, the Steinway, the security radio, and now this. Nash, she said slowly, stepping down from the truck bed to the ground, putting distance between them. You're shaking. I'm tired, he said abruptly, putting the guitar away in its case with jerky movements. We should get back. It's getting dark. He was shutting down. The wall was back up. Sophia watched him. She didn't press him. Not yet. But the seed was planted. She climbed into the passenger seat, the memory of the almost kiss burning on her lips, now tainted by the mystery. The drive back to the farmhouse was silent. The golden hour had turned into the blue hour, the world becoming cold and shadowed. When they pulled up to her porch, the lights in the house were on. The power was back. Thanks for the help, Nash said, not looking at her. Sophia opened the door. She paused. You know, Nash, she said softly, in my industry, everyone wears a mask. I'm pretty good at spotting them. Nash gripped the steering wheel. Good night, Sophia. Good night. She stepped out and closed the door. She watched him drive away, faster this time. She went inside the warm house, but she felt cold. She walked over to her recording equipment. She replayed the voice memo she had recorded the night before, him playing the piano. She listened closely. Then she opened her laptop. She had a signal now that the power was back, and the storm had cleared. She typed into the search bar, Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. Nothing. She typed, famous reclusive country singers. A few names popped up, but none looked like him. Then she remembered the radio. Mr. Calloway. She typed, Calloway agribusiness owner. The internet connection was slow, loading pixel by pixel. Finally, an article from Forbes loaded. The Billionaire Farmer, How Nash Calloway Turned Dirt into Gold. There was no photo of his face, just a silhouette of a man in a hat looking over a field. The article described him as reclusive, a ghost, and a musical prodigy who vanished from the public eye after a tragic accident 5 years ago. Sophia sat back in her chair, her heart pounding in her ears. Nash wasn't the caretaker. He wasn't even just the owner. He was one of the richest men in the country and a musical prodigy. Why lie? Why pretend to be a hired hand for $50? She looked out the window toward the big barn on the hill. The lights were on up there. He was hiding. But from what? Sophia looked at her notebook. She picked up her pen, title, The Billionaire's Ballad. She started writing. Not a song, but a plan. She was going to find out the truth, and she was going to make him play that song again, but this time, without the mask. But what Sophia didn't know was that by uncovering his secret, she was putting a target on her back. Because Nash Calloway didn't hide just because he was sad. He hid because he was hunted. And the paparazzi the radio mentioned? They weren't just looking for a photo. They were looking for a scandal. And a pop star alone in a farmhouse with a billionaire recluse was the kind of scandal that could burn the whole town down. The screen of the laptop glowed in the dark farmhouse, illuminating Sophia's face with a pale, ghostly light. The article headline stared back at her. Nash Calloway, the lost prodigy. She looked out the window toward the mansion on the hill. It stood like a fortress against the night sky, dark and imposing. He wasn't a caretaker. He wasn't a simple cowboy. He was a man worth billions, a musical genius who had vanished from the face of the earth. And she had tipped him $50. A hysterical laugh bubbled up in her throat, but it died quickly, because along with the realization came a question. Why? Why hide? Why lie? And why did the security radio mention paparazzi? Sophia grabbed her keys. She wasn't going to wait for morning. The storm inside her was louder than the one outside. She needed answers, and she was going to get them from the billionaire himself. The drive up to the main house was shorter than she expected. Without Nash driving slowly to prolong the ride, she reached the massive wrought-iron gates in 2 minutes. To her surprise, they were unlocked, standing slightly ajar. Careless, she thought. Or maybe he just didn't care anymore. She drove her rental car up the winding paved driveway, flanked by ancient oak trees. The house revealed itself as she rounded the bend, a sprawling estate of stone and glass, blending modern architecture with rustic timber. It was breathtaking and lonely. She parked right next to his rusted red truck. The contrast between the beat-up vehicle and the multi-million-dollar mansion was jarring. It was a physical manifestation of the split in his soul. Sophia marched up to the massive front door. She didn't knock. She pounded. "Nash!" she yelled. "Open up!" Silence. She tried the handle. Unlocked. She pushed the heavy door open and stepped into a foyer with ceilings that soared 20 feet high. A crystal chandelier hung dark overhead. The only light came from a fireplace roaring in the great room beyond. "Nash!" she called again, her voice echoing off the marble floors. "You're trespassing again, darlin." His voice came from the shadows near the fire. Sophia walked into the living room. It was furnished with leather sofas and priceless art, but it felt cold, uninhabited. Nash was standing by the fireplace, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He was still wearing the clothes from the day before, looking disheveled and weary. "I know who you are," Sophia said, her voice shaking slightly. Nash took a slow sip of his drink. He didn't look surprised. He just looked tired. "I figured you would," he said. "City girl like you. Probably have Wi-Fi faster than my tractor." "Nash Calloway," she said the name like an accusation. "Owner of Calloway Agribusiness, one of the wealthiest men in the South, and a musical prodigy." Nash winced at the word prodigy. He turned away, looking into the flames. "Why did you lie to me?" she demanded, stepping closer. "Why the act? The $50? The caretaker story?" "Because—" Nash turned, his eyes blazing with sudden intensity. "For 5 years, everyone who looks at me sees a bank account, or a tragedy, or a headline." He walked toward her, stopping just inches away. The smell of whiskey was strong on him now. "When you looked at me in that field, Sophia, you didn't see Calloway. You saw a guy with a guitar. You treated me like a human being. You have no idea how addictive that is." Sophia faltered. The anger drained out of her, replaced by a pang of sympathy. "You wanted to be normal." "I wanted to be invisible," he corrected. "But you have a way of seeing right through things. Is that why you stopped playing professionally?" she asked softly. "Because of the fame?" Nash laughed, a bitter, harsh sound. "Fame? No. Fame is annoying. I stopped because music killed the only person I ever loved." The confession hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Sophia stood frozen. "What?" she whispered. Nash turned back to the fire, gripping the mantle with his free hand, until his knuckles turned white. "Her name was Annie," he said, his voice low and raspy. "She was my high school sweetheart, before the billions, before the records. We were just kids." Sophia listened, afraid to breathe, afraid to break the spell. "I got signed to a label in Nashville," he continued. "It happened fast. Too fast. The press went crazy. The Cowboy Prince, they called me. Annie, she wasn't built for it. She was shy, private." He took another drink, emptying the glass. 5 years ago, we were leaving a restaurant. The paparazzi were swarming. Cameras flashing, shouting. We got in the truck. Not this one. A new one. I was driving. His voice cracked. Sophia instinctively reached out, touching his arm. He didn't pull away. "They chased us," he whispered. 4 cars, high speed, trying to get a shot of the ring on her finger. I tried to lose them. It was raining, like last night. He closed his eyes. I spun out, hit a tree. I walked away with a few scratches. He opened his eyes, and they were filled with endless, dark pain. "Annie didn't make it." Sophia gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. "Oh, Nash, I'm so sorry." "The press," he spat the word like poison. "They didn't call for help. They took pictures. They took pictures of me pulling her body out of the wreckage. That was the cover of the tabloids the next day." Tears pricked Sophia's eyes. Now she understood. The isolation, the rusted truck, the hatred for the radio call. "So I disappeared," Nash said. "I bought this land. I built walls. I bought the silence. and I swore I would never play for an audience again, because every note I play reminds me of her. But you played for me, Sophia said softly. Nash looked at her. He placed his empty glass on the table and turned to face her fully. I know, he murmured. I don't know why. Maybe because you looked as lost as I felt. Or maybe... He reached out, his hand cupping her cheek. His thumb traced her jawline. Maybe because for the first time in 5 years, I wanted someone to hear me. Sophia leaned into his touch. Her heart was breaking for him, but it was also racing. The connection between them was undeniable. It was forged in music and sealed in secrets. You're not invisible to me, Nash, she whispered. Rich or poor, famous or broken, I just see you. Nash groaned, a sound of defeat and desire. He lowered his forehead to hers. You should run, Sophia, he breathed against her lips. I am a cursed man. Everyone who gets close to me gets burned. I'm not afraid of fire, she answered. He was about to kiss her, really kiss her this time. The air was electric, charged with the heat of 2 lonely souls colliding. And then a siren wailed. Not a police siren, an alarm. It blared through the house, a high-pitched rhythmic screeching that shattered the moment instantly. Red lights began to flash in the hallway. Nash pulled back, his eyes going wide and hard. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by the cold, calculating look of a billionaire under siege. What is that? Sophia shouted over the noise. Perimeter breach, Nash shouted back. He grabbed her hand. Someone just cut the lock on the north gate. Nash dragged her toward a panel on the wall. He punched in a code, and the siren stopped, replaced by a computerized voice. Zone 4 breach. Vehicle detected. Multiple unauthorized entries. The radio, Sophia realized. They found you. They didn't just find me, Nash said grimly, looking at a security monitor embedded in the wall. Look. On the grainy black and white screen, Sophia saw 3 SUVs tearing up the dirt road, the same road she had driven yesterday. They weren't police cars. They were blacked out, and hanging out of the windows were men with massive telephoto lenses. Paparazzi? She asked. Worse, Nash said. Tabloid hunters. They don't just want a photo, Sophia, they want a story. And they see a strange car parked next to mine. He pointed to the screen where Sophia's rental convertible was clearly visible in the driveway. They ran your plates, Nash deduced instantly. They know Sophia Vance, the struggling pop star, is shacked up with Nash Calloway, the reclusive billionaire widower. They are writing the headline right now. Sophia felt sick. I led them here. My rental car has a tracker from the agency. If someone hacked it, it doesn't matter how they found us, Nash said, grabbing a set of keys from a hook. What matters is getting you out before they swarm the house. If they see you here, your career becomes a circus, and my life, my privacy, is over. Where are we going? The storm cellar, Nash said. It connects to the old barn. I can get you to the back roads. I'm not leaving you, Sophia protested. You don't have a choice, Nash snapped. He grabbed her shoulders. Listen to me. These people destroyed my life once. I will not let them destroy yours. Now move. He pulled her toward the kitchen. He opened a pantry door, revealing a hidden staircase going down into the darkness. Go, he ordered. Nash, wait. She grabbed his arm. Come with me. I have to hold them off, he said. I have to buy you time. No, she said firmly. We go together, or I stay right here and smile for the cameras. Nash looked at her. She was stubborn, recklessly brave. He swore under his breath. Fine, but you keep your head down. They descended into the dark tunnel. It smelled of damp earth and concrete. Nash used his phone as a flashlight. They ran through the narrow corridor, their footsteps echoing. Above them, they could hear the muffled sound of tires on gravel. Car doors slamming, shouting. Mr. Calloway, we know you're in there. Is Sophia Vance with you? The voices were muffled but terrifying. They emerged into the cool air of the big barn, the one with the Steinway. It was dark inside. My truck is parked around back, Nash whispered. We take the field road. It comes out 5 miles down the highway. He led her to the truck. They climbed in. Nash didn't turn on the headlights. He started the engine, praying it wouldn't backfire. It purred to life. He slowly drove the truck out of the barn, keeping to the shadows of the tree line. They could see the front of the mansion. It was a circus. Flashes popping like strobe lights. Men banging on the front door. Vultures, Nash hissed, his hands gripping the wheel. They're looking for a monster, Sophia whispered, watching the chaos. But they're the monsters. Nash navigated the truck through the tall cornfield, the stalks whipping against the windows. He drove by memory, blind in the dark, guided only by instinct. Finally, after 10 agonizing minutes, they hit the paved county road. Nash floored it, putting distance between them and the estate. Only then did he turn on the headlights. Sophia let out a shaky breath. "We escaped." "For tonight," Nash said. "But they know you were there. They saw your car." "Let them look," Sophia said, reaching across the console to take his hand. "I don't care about the headlines, Nash." Nash glanced at her. "You should. Your label will drop you. The critics will tear you apart." "I told you." She squeezed his hand. "I came here to write a hit. Maybe I found something better." Nash slowed the truck down. He pulled over onto the shoulder of the deserted highway. "What are you doing?" she asked. He put the truck in park. He turned to her. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind only the raw intensity of their shared escape. "I can't take you back to your rental," he said. "They'll check there first." "So where do we go?" "I have a cabin," he said. "Up in the mountains, off the grid. No roads. Only the truck can make it." "Take me there," she said instantly. Nash looked at her. "If we go there, Sophia, there's no turning back. It's just you and me. No internet, no phone. For days, maybe weeks, until this blows over." "I don't need the internet." She unbuckled her seatbelt and slid across the bench seat until she was next to him. "I just need the music." She touched his face. "And the man who makes it." Nash didn't hesitate this time. He wrapped his arm around her waist and pulled her in. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle, it was desperate. It tasted of danger and freedom. It was a kiss, 5 years in the making. Sophia melted into him, her hands tangling in his hair, his stubble grazing her skin. In the cab of the rusted truck on the side of a dark highway, the billionaire and the singer finally found their harmony. But as they pulled apart, breathless and dizzy, Nash's phone buzzed on the dashboard. A single text message. From an unknown number. Nash picked it up. His face went pale in the dashboard light. "What is it?" Sophia asked, tracing his lips with her finger. Nash showed her the screen. It was a photo of them, taken seconds ago through the windshield of the truck, and the text read, "Nice kiss, Mr. Calloway. The bidding starts at $1 million, or we release the audio tape from the night of the accident." Nash dropped the phone. "They have audio," he whispered. "They recorded the crash." "They recorded Annie dying." Sophia stared at the phone. This wasn't just paparazzi, this was blackmail. "Drive," she said, her voice fierce. "Drive to the mountains, Nash. We are going to war." The truck climbed the mountain road, tires crunching over loose gravel and fallen pine needles. The air grew thinner, colder, and sharper. Nash didn't speak. He drove with a lethal focus, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. The text message burned in his mind. The audio tape. The last moments of Annie's life, sold to the highest bidder like cheap entertainment. It was his worst nightmare, resurrected. Sophia watched him. She didn't offer empty platitudes. She knew that in moments like this, words were useless. Instead, she reached out and rested her hand on his thigh, a silent anchor in the storm. He didn't look at her, but she felt the tension in his leg muscle relax. Just a fraction. He wasn't alone anymore. They reached the cabin an hour later. It wasn't a rustic shack. It was a billionaire's hideaway, a masterpiece of timber and glass perched on the edge of a cliff, overlooking the entire valley below. Nash killed the engine. The silence of the mountains rushed in, absolute and heavy. "We're safe here," he said, his voice rough. "No cell service, no roads. Even a drone would struggle with the wind currents up here." He opened the door and stepped out into the biting wind. Sophia followed. He unlocked the front door, disarming a high-tech security system that seemed out of place in the wilderness. Inside, the air was stale but warm. Nash immediately went to the massive stone fireplace and began building a fire. He moved mechanically, needing something to do with his hands. Sophia watched him for a moment, then walked over. She knelt beside him on the rug. "Nash," she whispered. "Stop." He froze, a log suspended in his hand. "You can't build a fire big enough to burn what you're feeling," she said softly. "Look at me." He turned his head. His eyes were tormented, dark pools of grief and rage. "They want to destroy me, Sophia. They want to take the only private moment I have left, my grief, and turn it into a circus. I should pay them. I have the money. I could make it go away. And then they will ask for more, she said, taking the log from his hand and setting it down. And more. Until you are nothing but an ATM machine for monsters. You can't buy silence, Nash. You can only own the truth. He slumped back against the stone hearth, looking defeated. How? The audio. If the world hears that, let them hear it, she said fiercely, not the way the blackmailers want, but on your terms. You are Nash Calloway. You aren't just a victim. You are a survivor. And you are a musician. Nash looked at her. A musician? He hadn't felt like one in years. What are you saying? I'm saying we stop running, she said, moving closer until she was kneeling between his legs. I'm saying we change the narrative. But tonight we don't think about them. Tonight, we are just two people on a mountain. She reached out and touched his face. Her fingers traced the rough stubble of his jaw. The danger, the adrenaline, and the shared isolation had stripped away all pretenses. There was no billionaire, no pop star. Just a man and a woman drawn together by a magnetic force that defied logic. Nash's breathing hitched. He looked at her lips, then up to her eyes. You are dangerous, Sophia Vance. You make me want to forget everything. Then forget, she commanded softly. He didn't need to be told twice. He reached out, his large hands framing her face, and pulled her to him. The kiss was explosive. It was fueled by the fear of the chase and the relief of safety. He tasted of desperation and whiskey. She tasted of hope. Nash pulled her closer, his hands sliding down to her waist, lifting her effortlessly until she was straddling his lap. She gasped, wrapping her arms around his neck, burying her hands in his thick, dark hair. The fire behind them crackled to life, casting long dancing shadows on the walls, but the real heat was between them. He laid her back on the thick rug before the fire. He looked down at her, his gaze worshipping her. For years he had been dead inside, a ghost haunting his own life. But looking at Sophia with her golden hair spread out like a halo and her eyes dark with desire, he felt a surge of life so powerful it almost hurt. Make me feel real, he whispered against her neck, and she did. The night blurred into a symphony of touch and sensation. Outside, the wind howled against the glass, but inside, there was only the sound of ragged breathing and soft whispers. They moved together with a frantic need, erasing the past with every touch, building a new future with every kiss. In the darkness of the cabin, Nash Calloway didn't just find pleasure. He found redemption. He found that his heart, which he thought was buried in a wreck 5 years ago, was still beating, and it was beating for her. Morning broke over the mountains with a blinding clarity. The sun flooded the cabin, turning the wood to gold. Nash woke up first. He lay there for a long time just watching Sophia sleep. Her arm was thrown over his chest, her hair tickling his chin. He felt a fierce, protective surge in his chest. He wasn't going to pay the blackmailer. He wasn't going to hide. He carefully disentangled himself from her and got up. He found his guitar in the corner of the room. He had brought it from the truck last night. He walked out onto the deck, facing the rising sun and the valley below. He sat on the railing and began to play. Not a sad song, a fight song. Sophia woke to the sound of music. She smiled, stretching like a cat in the sun. She wrapped a blanket around herself and walked out onto the deck. Nash looked up at her. He didn't stop playing. I have a plan, he said. Sophia leaned against the doorframe. I'm listening. We go back, he said, his fingers dancing over the fretboard. We go back to the farm. We invite the press. All of them. The tabloids, the news networks, the bloggers. Sophia raised an eyebrow. You want to invite the vultures to dinner. I want to starve them, Nash corrected. I'm going to give a concert, one night only, live streamed to the world. I'm going to play this song, and I'm going to tell the story of the accident. My version. The truth. And the audio tape? Sophia asked. If I tell the truth first, the tape loses its power. It becomes just a tragic echo, not a scandalous secret. But he stopped playing, looking at her with vulnerability. I can't do it alone. I need a producer. I need someone who knows how to stage a comeback. Sophia smiled, a slow, confident grin spreading across her face. Well, Mr. Calloway, it just so happens that I am the best talent scout in New York, and I think I just found my headliner. The return to the Calloway estate was not a retreat. It was an invasion. Sophia worked the phones, using a burner she found in the cabin, calling every contact she had in the industry. She promised the exclusive of the decade. The return of Nash Calloway. Within 24 hours, the lawn of the estate was transformed. A stage was built in front of the big barn. Cameras were set up. Satellite trucks lined the road for miles. The blackmailer, who turned out to be a disgraced former paparazzo, tried to leak the audio tape an hour before the show. But Sophia was ready. She had her PR team flood the internet with teasers of Nash's new song. The leak was buried under the avalanche of hype. No one cared about a grainy audio tape from the past when the legend himself was about to speak in the present. At 8 p.m., the lights went down. The murmur of the crowd, a mix of reporters and lucky locals, died away. Nash walked onto the stage. He was wearing his signature flannel shirt, jeans, and the cowboy hat. He didn't look like a billionaire. He looked like the man on the truck. He carried his Martin D28. He sat on a simple wooden stool. A single spotlight hit him. He looked into the camera lens. He knew millions were watching. He took a deep breath. "For 5 years I ran," he began, his voice deep and steady. "I ran from my money. I ran from my name. And I ran from the grief of losing my wife, Annie." A hush fell over the crowd. "There are people who want to sell you my tragedy," he continued. "They want you to hear the sounds of the worst night of my life. But I'm not here to talk about death. I'm here to talk about life. And how sometimes you have to break down completely to be built back up." He looked to the side of the stage. Sophia was standing there holding a headset, giving him a thumbs up. Her eyes were shining with pride. "I met someone," Nash said, a small smile touching his lips. "A city girl with broken heels and a stubborn heart. She reminded me that music isn't about hiding, it's about healing. This song, this is for Annie, and it's for Sophia." He started to play. It was the song he had played on the truck but finished. It soared, it wept, it triumphed. It was a masterpiece of country soul that wove together the pain of the past and the hope of the future. As he sang, the internet exploded. The blackmailer's threat evaporated into nothingness, rendered irrelevant by the raw power of Nash's art. He wasn't a victim anymore. He was the king of country, reclaiming his throne. When the final note rang out, there was a second of stunned silence. Then, the applause started. It was deafening. It rolled over the fields like thunder. Nash stood up. He didn't bow. He walked straight off the stage, past the cameras, past the reporters shouting his name. He walked straight to Sophia. "Did I do okay?" he asked, breathless. Sophia laughed, tears streaming down her face. "You were perfect. You just broke the internet, Nash." "I don't care about the internet," he said, pulling her into his arms. "I just want to know if I got the girl." Sophia looked up at him. "The billionaire, the farmer, the musician, the man. You had the girl since the moment you picked her up in that rusted truck," she whispered. Nash kissed her. Right there in the wings of the stage, with the world watching on the monitors. He kissed her with the passion of a man who had finally come home. 6 months later, the rusted red truck rumbled down the dirt road, kicking up dust in the golden hour light. Nash was driving, one hand on the wheel, the other holding Sophia's hand. They weren't hiding anymore. Calloway agribusiness was still running, but Nash had hired a CEO to handle the board meetings. He had better things to do, like the recording studio they had built in the barn, or the tour that was starting next month, a duo tour, Calloway and Vance. Sophia looked out the window at the wheat fields. She looked at the ring on her finger. Not a flashy diamond, but a vintage gold band that had belonged to his grandmother. "Where are we going?" she asked. "The North Pasture," Nash said, smiling. "I heard the acoustics are pretty good out there, and I owe you $50. Sophia laughed. "You're never going to let me live that down, are you?" "Never," he promised. He pulled the truck over on the top of the hill. The sun was setting, painting the sky in fire and honey. He grabbed his guitar. She grabbed her notebook. They sat on the tailgate, their legs dangling, shoulders touching. Nash strummed a chord. Sophia hummed a melody. And in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by billions of dollars of land and an infinite sky, they made the only thing that truly mattered. They made music. And this time it was a love song that would last forever. Nash almost gave up on music, but love brought him back. And you? Is there a dream or passion you're still pursuing? Share your story in the comments and tell me what city you're watching from. If this video moved you, like and subscribe to the channel. Until the next love story.